Dirt Trax is sponsored by Can-Am. We're built for this. Polaris, the world leader in off-road innovation. And by Yamaha, conquer outdoors.
The first part of our trip in Newfoundland was absolutely fantastic. We rode over 100 kilometers, headed from Port aux Basques up to Pirates Haven along Newfoundland's newly connected trail system from the south all the way to the north. We had amazing food, we met amazing people, and we saw some of the most beautiful overlooks we've ever seen. But there was still a ton of riding to do if we were going to make it to Deer Lake.
So after sort of hanging out with Paul and Ruth for the better part of day 2, we thought, you know what, we better get underway, otherwise we're not going to get into Corner Brook on time. So we left Pirates Haven and took the trail system, and we're heading towards an area called Stephenville.
As we get close to Stephenville, there's a fantastic piece of land there. It's called Black Bank, and it's these amazing sand dunes and just a beautiful beach. So I kind of like to take people there. I don't tell people when we're going that they're going to see this nice sandy beach in Newfoundland, and people don't expect it. People expect Newfoundland as a rugged coast and lots of rocks.
This place is so bizarre. I mean, it's amazing, but it's bizarre because you totally forget you're in Newfoundland when you pull up to this beach. And one of the cool parts about it is that you can ride right on the beach. A lot of places don't let you do that, but here you can. So we pulled out onto this beach. All of a sudden, we shifted gears from Newfoundland. We're in California.
The first thing I thought is like, okay, I've been to places like this before. Like, this is like Pismo Beach and Oceana Dune and along the coast of Mexico. But I'm in like the northern part of Canada in Newfoundland. I've just come from the mountains, and now I'm all of a sudden down on the beach driving along the coast. But as soon as we got on there, the three of us, Craig, Luke, and I, we thought, you know what, game on. We had a little bit of fun and started racing each other up and down the beach.
We were ripping down the beach full throttle, just having a blast. When we left the Black Bank Beach, we really had two options at this point, or you would have two options at this point. If you want to cut off of the T-rail, you can head into a town called Stevensville, which has got hotels, restaurants, it's got a mall, it's got everything you possibly need, and you could stay there if you wanted or go in for some food. But we had a lot more running to do, so we stayed on the T-rail and continued on towards Corner Brook.
If you decide to come to Newfoundland to do an ATV trip or bring your ATV and go for a ride, we have a wide range of riding trains here to take advantage of. One thing, forestry was huge in Newfoundland. We have loads and loads. We have hundreds of miles of forestry roads that are quite accessible by ATVs and easy to use. We have an existing rail bed that travels all across the island, and besides that, we have a great network of snowmobile trails.
That's basically your main network and corridor to basically travel. From the south through to the north is basically an abandoned rail bed. Provides sort of that highway, that off-road highway, if you will. So you can really make good time sort of getting from city center to city center.
It's probably the most well-maintained, wide-open trail I think I've ever really ridden on that's technically an ATV trail. It was a nice ride. It was an easy ride. That was the thing about it that I really liked, is after a lot of running the previous day and a lot of running in the morning.
The one rail bed that runs into Corner Brook sort of ends at a subdivision, and that subdivision is right in the bay. They call it the Bay of Islands.
After all was said and done, we pulled into the outskirts of Corner Brook, and Corner Brook is a city. It's not a town. It's a large city in Newfoundland.
You quickly look to the left, you're running along this Bay of Islands coast, and that leads you straight into Corner Brook.
The first thing you really ride by, it's a bit of a landmark in Corner Brook, is the pulp mill. Really the big industry in Corner Brook. It's been there forever, and it employs a lot of people. It's actually kind of a neat spot too. You've got the ocean on one side, Corner Brook on the other, and this great big mill in the middle. It's a pretty unique thing after riding down the T-rail for so long, after seeing so much wild sort of country, to all of a sudden, out of nowhere, ride into a big city. It was pretty neat.
It was just June 1st of this year that the city of Corner Brook did the bylaw for shared route access for ATVs and side-by-sides. Part of it was they knew that we were coming and they wanted to make sure they had this in place. But the real reason why this came to be was because a lot of the hard work from individuals like Craig and other individuals that were sort of getting from the south through to the north, there was a missing link. So someone could sort of take that rail bed all the way up to Corner Brook and they had nowhere to go. You'd have to get off your ATV, pack it into a trailer, somehow get someone to drive you through the city to the next neighboring town where you can get onto the rail bed again and then continue north.
All the years I've been riding and all the unique places I've ridden, I don't think I've ever ridden an ATV through a city center this big, this busy. It was, you know, it was a city. It was awesome. And I got to give big kudos to the city of Corner Brook for doing something like this, for being progressive enough and forward-thinking enough to see the value in ATVs, to see obviously the monetary value in the pocketbooks of ATVers as they travel. You know, ATVers spend money. It's a good thing, and it's something that a lot of other places in Newfoundland are now seeing the value in and sort of adopting similar policies for their towns.
Dirt Trax is sponsored by Princess Auto, a unique world of equipment, tools, and more. Closed captioning of Dirt Trax is sponsored by MBRP Power Sports, race-inspired performance.
As you get into Corner Brook, you're literally going down Main Street, Corner Brook. And Corner Brook isn't small. I mean, this is a population of 30,000 people. You have access to your food, gas, lodging.
You can go to the drugstore, you can go to the grocery store, you can go to the movies if you want on your ATV. If this is gonna be a place that you stay during your trip, you'd never have to worry about getting a taxi. So we traveled through the middle of Corner Brook and we were staying on the other side of it.
So at Rugged Edge, we don't only just do ATV or snowmobile tours and do retail. We also work with some great accommodators in our area. We were lucky enough that Luke and Vern got to visit some good friends of mine at the Saltbox, which is a new restaurant opened up in the Bay of Islands, and it's the first really for its kind. But it also, besides being a restaurant, a cool place to hang out, like the guys found out. They do kayaking, jet ski tours, boat tours. They've got us really cool information about the geology and our history of the Bay of Islands.
You know, it's fun that you can be ordering an order of mussels from the restaurant and they're over there processing the same mussels that you're probably going to be ordering from the group anyway. So it's pretty neat little touch.
Can we get you some? So does this mean when there's two in here that I'm lucky?
Yeah, that's bonus. That's what we call mainland mussel. That's how we get you hooked.
There you go.
We put 2 mussels in there for you guys, and then we want you want to come back and eat more.
It's incredible how fresh seafood can convert someone from the mainland that doesn't like seafood, because you don't have that gamey, salty taste, right? It's just so fresh.
One thing we hear daily in our shop or outside traveling with someone goes, "You guys had Dirt Trax." Well, yeah, that was a cool show, and we hear all the time. So I mean, we were glad to have them here once. We're extremely excited to have them back for the second time.
I think I feel really, really privileged to be able to get to know Craig a lot better as well. I've known him as sort of a business owner and a tour operator, but you know, sharing this experience with him, I got to know him more as like a family man, and his passion not only for the sport and how much effort he puts into making sure that if it's not snowmobiling, if it's not ATV, if it's not UTV, it's how can people really explore Newfoundland to its full potential other than just sort of taking a tour bus. Super, super nice guy. Incredibly diligent, hard worker, and he's passionate. There's no need for doubt in his mind.
You came reassuring. Dirt Trax is sponsored by Shock Strap. Start strapped, stay strapped.
So we're now on our last day, and we've essentially come full circle. We're ending our trip where we sort of began our trip, and that being Deer Lake. And what we have in store for Deer Lake is a tour of their big hydroelectric dam and the trail network that goes up to it.
In the process, we were going to hook up with the mayor of Deer Lake. His name is Dean Ball, and he wanted to give us the tour.
Great. Thanks for meeting us today.
Thank you, man. Good to see you.
Vern, pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you guys. Welcome to Deer Lake.
Luke, nice to meet you.
Dean is a great guy, and he's a cool mayor because he's an ATVer. He's not just like a mayor who's ATV friendly. He's a mayor who rides ATVs. So this guy is like, he's on point when it comes to making sure ATVers are comfortable in his town, that he's got amenities for them.
So it's just up the trail, is it?
Just up the trail there, about a kilometer.
All right, well, let's get going.
Let's get going.
He is like dedicated to this, and he's actually quite a good rider. He can rep pretty good, so.
And he's just racing up there, 100% in control. But Dean knows how to ride, and so that really bumped up the energy level for the day.
You would say to yourself, well, this is for the, like probably for the entire province or half the province, but it's not. It does only the paper mill in Corner Brook.
Like, think about that. Like, that's how massive the pulp and paper mill is and how much energy it takes to sort of produce the products that they're doing. It takes this whole dam. That in itself is pretty amazing.
The dam is from the 20s is when they built it. And when we're looking at this dam, all we could think about was how on earth do you build something like this in the 20s when you didn't have any heavy machinery? How did they do that? It's that impressive. What's the lifespan of that
It's
dam?
100 years. We're hoping is another 100. But there's routine maintenance and dam checks every year. 100 years ago, it was all manpower.
Yeah.
So it's a great piece of history.
Definitely get a better perspective from down here.
Oh, absolutely.
Close your tired eyes.
We have a great relationship with Deer Lake Power. They'll permit us to go on top of the dam with ATVs.
Oh, okay.
So it is.
Oh, that's kind of neat.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, to be able to cross over top there.
Great relationship.
Just the fact that they let you use their property for a trail and come in here. I mean, most places would just shut it down and say too bad.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And 12 months a year. I mean, there's.
So Dean wanted to make sure that someone watching this episode can understand that, yes, you have to sort of take that trail that goes below the dam on a regular basis, but just in case that water's high and they're letting the water out, the trail isn't closed. The city of Deer Lake and the municipalities want to make sure that you have that unrestricted access.
Your tired eyes.
And then we went up, we got to ride across the top of the dam, and that was really neat.
Put your guitar down and it's okay. Play it safe.
Like, it felt like you could put your arm out on one side and then the other side was like 100 feet straight down. It was a really weird feeling.
One thing we like about Luke and Vern and the Dirt Trax crew is that filming, we're showing these guys places. It's like I'm with a bunch of buddies I went to school with. It's not pushing me to get up and do stuff we don't want to do. It's a great bunch of guys. I'm glad that they came back and did the trip for the second time. And I can't wait to come back here in the snow so we can show them what their Newfoundland winter's all about.
Vern didn't have any idea what to expect. And after it was all said and done, listening to him talk about Newfoundland and basically mirror my comments exactly about how amazing it is, how great the people are, how scenic the entire province is, all the unique things we could do was really satisfying to me, because I had gone home from my first trip and bragged endlessly about how amazing Newfoundland was, and Vern felt exactly the same way. My enthusiasm for the area didn't let anybody down. It actually maybe wasn't even enthusiastic enough.
It's been a while since I've been able to go on a ride with Luke where we can spend, 5 days going over a cool destination without having the pressures of work and just sort of experience the best of life. And that's probably one of the best ways to sum up your experience in Newfoundland.
Going on a trip like this has got to be on an ATV or side-by-side rider's bucket list. It really does. And when I've come back to Ontario and I'm talking to people, I keep telling them, if you haven't been to Newfoundland, you haven't seen all that our country, but all that the east coast of North America has to offer.
You have some of the best vistas, you have some of the best landscapes, some of the best terrain that you can ride, some of the most genuine and friendly people you'll ever come across, and most importantly, a true Newfoundland experience.
You made it through another day.
Dirt Trax is sponsored by Argo. Go anywhere.
I did a test on a Sportsman 450 utility a few seasons ago, and the only thing that's changed on this new unit is the color. But since then, I've been to numerous new model intros and release events, and it's all given me a new perspective on the Sportsman 450. Don't get me wrong, improvements and advances in performance and technology are always a good thing. They are what drive the industry forward, and they're what bring us better vehicles year after year. But the simple fact of the matter is that all of this comes at a cost, literally. As performance and technology continue to advance, a large number of models get pushed farther and farther out of reach for many ATV buyers. This isn't all bad though. Companies like Polaris understand the advancement versus cost and affordability paradox and offer pared down, budget-friendly vehicles that retail for much more realistic money. Case in point, the Sportsman 450.
Alarm goes off at a 4:45. Roll out of bed, rub the sleep from my eyes. Throw on a shirt and some jeans and my boots.
So what is the utility version of a Sportsman 450? In a nutshell, it's a Sportsman 450 with everything you could possibly need to get the job done and nothing you don't. It utilizes the same 500cc single overhead cam fuel-injected engine that produces an impressive 33 horsepower. And yes, we do think it's weird that Polaris's Sportsman 450 is actually a 500, but in reality, who cares? Like age, it's just a number. A double A-arm suspension setup offers up 9.4 inches of plush travel out back, but the 450 is one of only a few Polaris models that still utilizes their tried and true McPherson struts up front. They aren't flashy and they're definitely old school tech, but they yield 8.2 inches of travel and they still work really well. Overall, the 450's ride quality is on par with any other Polaris ATV. It's plush and comfortable, but here's an interesting point. McPherson strut-equipped Polaris ATVs were notorious for light and feedback-free steering. So, while power steering is not an option on this unit, it's also not really necessary. It handles just fine without it. Now, in terms of drivetrain components, the 450 is running standard Polaris parts, though not the most recent iterations. Power is transferred through a high-low CVT transmission, and the shiftable 4x4 is the older, more basic system that Polaris uses, but it still works great. Before I get into some more philosophical ponderings about this ATV, I think we need to figure out what the utility model includes that the standard 450 doesn't. First and foremost, you'll notice right away that this Sportsman has a steel rack out back and a steel over rack up front.
Somewhere up the line, I forgot what I was working for.
This isn't so much a cost-cutting measure, but more intended to make carrying cargo on your rack infinitely more convenient, since a steel rack offers unlimited tie-down locations. It's also less likely to crack or break and need replacement if it gets damaged, and it allows the user to customize it exactly how they want by welding their own add-ons or extensions if they choose to. The front rack does still retain the under-rack storage setup though.
All I ever do is work, sleep, repeat.
Next, the 450 utility has not just a rear-mounted 1-inch hitch receiver, but it also has a front-mounted 1-inch hitch receiver. Now, the average user might not really see a huge benefit to this, but anybody who uses their ATV for lots of utility-type shenanigans is going to appreciate it big time. Finally, a heavy-duty steel front bumper Polaris calls the Farm and Ranch model and a steel lower bumper round out what makes the utility Sportsman unique. Now that we know what the Sportsman 450 utility is all about, let's talk a little bit about value. Is or isn't this ATV a great deal? And is or is it not capable of doing all the things an average ATVer is going to want to do with their ATV? The answer to both questions is a resounding yes. The 450 utility retails for just $65.49 US. For that price, you get a 33 horsepower 4x4 ATV with over 9 inches of suspension travel that can and will go anywhere and do anything you need or want it to do. It also includes a bunch of extra features that make using it for utility purposes more convenient, all at a price pretty much any ATVer could find a way to afford if they really wanted to. circling back to our discussion at the beginning about technology and performance driving up the prices of high-end ATVs into not affordable territory, as a budget-conscious buyer, this really shouldn't upset or discourage you one bit. Because as technology continues to advance on the higher-end models, it also continues to trickle down to the more budget-friendly models as well. The Sportsman 450's excellent digital gauge package is just one example of this happening. The Sportsman 450 utility is a full-size, fully capable ATV with a long list of features found on more expensive units for a fraction of the cost. In my books, that's a win-win for anyone wanting a brand new ATV that isn't going to leave you homeless.
Dirt Trax Television has been sponsored by Polaris, the world leader in off-road innovation. Can-Am, we're built for this. And by Arctic Cat.
Well, the fellas I'm with this morning, though, put the TV in ATV. Haven't seen a program. What's it all about?
Dirt Trax is just, it's an enthusiast show catering to off-road enthusiasts, ATV side-by-side users. We are ATV and side-by-side users ourselves. We're enthusiasts ourselves, and we basically just are out here having fun doing what everybody else wants to be doing and is striving to do. So that's what we're all about.
Now, I know you talk about machines on the show.
Thanks for watching this Dirt Trax segment. Make sure you hit the subscribe button where you can watch pretty much anything related to ATV and side-by-sides.